What's going on, guys? Andrew Piluk Hockey here, back again with another video, and you see the title. Yeah, we're gonna talk about it. I'm not even sure if I can keep a straight face talking about this, but nonetheless, we're gonna discuss this. So, the rumor going around right now is that the Toronto Maple Leafs could potentially be interested in Tyler Myers. Yeah, I said Tyler Myers. Now, Tyler Myers is an NHL defenseman. I'm not going to sit here and go after him and attack him and whatever else. He hasn't been very good, but nonetheless, he is an NHL defenseman, and that's about as much credit as I'm going to be giving any further into this video. Now, this tweet comes from Irfan Gafar. Hopefully, I'm not mispronouncing the name. If I did, I do apologize. But it says, sounds like the Toronto Maple Leafs have some interest in Tyler Myers from the Canucks. We'll see where it goes, but the two sides have talked this week. The fourth period mentioned on NHL Network earlier today. Like Kyle Dubas was talking to the Canucks about Tyler Myers? I'm not really sure where this is coming from, with Dubas being a heavy driven analytics guy and a guy that really looks into how a player does in all situations, and you know how his staff works. The guy is very data and analytics. He's what do they call him, like an analytics darling, whatever. He's always into that stuff. I'm sure he looks at other metrics and whatever, but this matchup, this pairing doesn't make a lot of sense to me, and I don't want to give up too much from what I've personally heard, but let me just say, again, I'm not some dude with a bunch of sources. I've had a couple conversations, and from what I'm hearing, it's not the same as this. But again, I am not an insider. I'm not some guy that has all this information, and this is no disrespect to Irfan. Again, no disrespect if I'm saying the name incorrectly. This could be genuinely something that he heard or that he's reporting, but it's not making a ton of sense to me. The other issue that I'm having with this discussion is that Tyler Myers is getting paid $6 million against the cap, and the Leafs do not have that kind of money to be spending on a guy like Tyler Myers, and we'll be looking at some of his analytics later. But not only that, he's got the $6 million this year and $6 million the following year. The only way I could see this making sense is if the Leafs were able to get double retention, 50% retention from the Canucks and a third-party team that would then trade them Tyler Myers in another deal. I don't want them to be spending all these assets to try to get double retention on a guy that I don't think is worth even the money after double retention for this season and the next, especially with the minutes that he plays, some of his analytics, whatever. I'm not really into this at all. And again, no disrespect. I'm not trying to crap all over Tyler Myers here, but this is a decision that the Maple Leafs have to make, where they go, okay, what are we spending? What type of money do we have? And we'll be looking at that in a second. But what can we spend? Who can we go after? What assets can we spend? And you can't be pushing your chips in on Tyler Myers. I'm not always about points and driven on what a guy does when it comes to offense, but Tyler Myers, if he's not playing a lot of defense, he's not really putting up a bunch of numbers either. 10 points in 49 games played is not some sort of offensive dynamo. He's not a guy that's filling the net with points, so you could be like, okay, well, maybe he's not there defensively, but he does give you that solid production from the back end. That's not true in this case. Either way, he doesn't give you that great defensive play, and he doesn't give you the offense. Like, just for one little example, Evolving Wild posted on Twitter another defensive and offensive metric. He isn't really giving you much of anything, right? So a 5 overall, an offensive 38, and a defensive 7. Anything that's red is obviously not very good. He's got some offense here, but you're looking at this chart and you're seeing negative value. And speaking of negative value, there was another metric and another chart that showed his value when it comes to money in the open market and what he'd be worth if other teams were going to try to acquire him or sign him, and it was negative. I'm not even joking. It was like negative $5 million or negative $6 million. Like, he would have to pay the team to play for them. That seems a little ridiculous, and it definitely is ridiculous, but if you're seeing those types of numbers and if you're seeing those issues, you're probably not looking at Kyle Dubas and thinking, man, that guy must want Tyler Myers after seeing all of these numbers, unless they see something different. And I will try to at least give some sort of glimmer of hope if Tyler Myers came over in a trade, and I'll get to that a little bit later in the video, but it just doesn't make sense to me. Again, I want to take a look at their cap friendly. I want to look at the type of space. Now, this is not a guarantee of what the roster will look like come playoff time, but it's kind of like a rough estimate of what I think the money-wise it could look like. $2.8 million in cap space. Ben and Timmins as your scratches. Muzzin, Robertson, and Mete will likely be on LTIR for the rest of the regular season, or at least for the majority of it. But past the deadline for sure, you know, Riley and Liljegren are there, Brody and Hall, Sandy and Giordano. You've got Samsonov and Murray still, so that pretty much will stay the same for now. Bunting, Matthews, Nylander, Kerfoot, Tavares, Marner, Yarncrook, Kampf, and Engvall. Then you have Aston Reese, Holmberg, and Bobby McMahon. And again, these things can change. This is just a rough estimate of what they could look like come playoff time or come deadline time to see what kind of money they have to play with. As you can see, that money is not there. They don't have the money to go out there and be like, listen, let's just get double retention and acquire Tyler Myers. They would have to have money going out. They would have to give up multiple assets to get these teams to take on 50% of a contract for the next season after this one. This all around just doesn't make a lot of sense. And like I said, from what I've heard, it's not likely that this is a thing. I had to talk about it though, because listen, again, I mentioned before, if there was any sort of little glimmer of hope, if I was going to try to pry anything from this, that would be positive. If they acquired him, the Leafs are a much better team this year. The Canucks haven't been good overall as a team, and we've seen that from afar. The fans have noticed that. They just haven't been very good. And if you bring him over to a team that's playing better defensively, playing with better guys, I mean, the Canucks have some decent pieces obviously over there, but if you're playing with an overall better defensive team, maybe that changes the way you play. Maybe the minutes that you get, he probably wouldn't be getting the type of minutes he gets in Vancouver. He'd be a little bit more sheltered in Toronto. But then at that point, it's like, why are you going to acquire a guy and give up assets to shelter him? The Leafs need to go out there and get an obvious upgrade in their top four. If you're going to be going after a defenseman this trade deadline, it makes absolutely no sense to go after a guy that can't play defense. That sounds absolutely ridiculous, but it's looking like maybe somewhere out there this conversation has happened. I'd love to know why this is a thing. I'd love to know why I need to talk about this. But again, I try to talk about absolutely everything that happens with the Leafs. And also, Connor Timmins signed an extension. So if we're talking about the Leafs, that's pretty cool. $1.1 million for the next couple of years. But I honestly don't really want to talk about the whole Tyler Myers thing anymore. So hopefully this is the last video on it. Again, this is no disrespect to Tyler Myers. It sounds, you know, kind of crappy the way I'm talking about it in this context, but I'm happy for Myers. He's got his money, whatever. Maybe he comes to a different team. Maybe it's Toronto and plays decent, but I just don't think that it's gonna make a lot of sense. So if you guys are new here, make sure to like this video and subscribe. And I know a ton of you guys are not subscribed and you guys watch this content. Let me know if you like this style of content, because there's a lot more coming. I love making videos about trades, and the deadline's coming up. So let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. Like, subscribe, join the squad. I'd love to have you guys here. What are your thoughts on this topic? I'm not really sure it's a thing, but hey, I guess it kind of is. So yeah, I honestly, I don't really know what to say about this. This was almost painful to make. So I love you guys. I'll see you in the next one. Go Leafs, go. Peace.